Before we get going with intros, listeners, I want to ask Mike. Mike, tell us something that you believe about real estate that might surprise us.
Well, I have the perfect answer for this. It makes when I tell them this, it makes people's heads pop out of or eyes pop out of their head. The fact that there's 5 different ways that you make money from real estate. And their eyes are like kind of twinkling a little bit. And they ask, like, can you, explain more? And I tell them, appreciation, depreciation, cash flow, principal pay down, and value add. And they're like, well, what do you mean appreciation? And this is where the eyes go like Beetlejuice, is where if you have $1 million property you buy and you put 20% down, $200,000, the average that property appreciates a year over the last 60 years is about 5%. So 5% of $1 million is 50 grand. So your $200,000 down payment is generating, just from the one of 5 components, $50,000, which divided by 200 grand is 25%. Well, we still have 4 more ways that you're building your wealth with real estate. And then they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah. So that would be my answer to that.
Welcome to the Source of Commercial Real Estate, where we talk to the experts in commercial real estate so you can grow your business, find a competitive advantage, and use real estate to live the life that you want. I'm your host, Jonathan Hayek. I'm a former public school teacher who found financial freedom through residential real estate investing, and now I invest in commercial properties, particularly small industrial. And today I have the privilege of talking with Mike Hendzel. Mike is an active investor. He's a veteran. He has a ton of experience, and he has an incredibly compelling story, both personal story and in real estate. And so I think you're going to love this conversation. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Fantastic today. Very nervous, very uncomfortable all the time, but that's how I like it. How you doing, Jonathan?
I am great. You have no reason to be nervous. You love talking about real estate. So do I. So this is just going to be 2 guys having a casual conversation about commercial real estate. So why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about your background and how you got into real estate?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm married since 2017. I've got 2 kids like yourself, a 1 and 4-year-old, 1-year-old girl, 4-year-old boy, pair of dogs. One's a husky, one's a half husky, half shepherd. That's it really. I was born and raised in Clearwater, Florida, home of the original Hooters. And as far as my background and stuff, my parents escaped communism in the early 80s separately. Actually, they met in Chicago. They moved down to Tampa area, and my dad was in construction, and the investor he was working for helped him buy his first house at auction. And that's where, when I was born, that's the house I got brought back into. So I live, breathe real estate. I watched my parents, kind of buy jalopies, live in them for a couple of years, renovate them, and then rent them out, buy another one. And I'm asking my parents, like, why do we have wooden floors, like plywood, not like, nice floors? Where's our refrigerator? You see, these are the questions I grew up asking. I'd be on job sites growing up with my dad a lot. And basically I helped my dad collect rent, do remodels and the whole 9 yards. So I watched my parents accumulate like 5 houses, an apartment complex and all of that. And I graduated high school in 2004. And about a month after I graduated high school, I graduated from Bob Hogue School of Real Estate. So since 2004, I've been in real estate. I'm turning 39 tomorrow. So, I'm hitting about 20 years here, other than once I graduated high school, I started working on Clear Beach with a developer, which was amazing. My girlfriend at the time, her mom was the broker, in-house broker for the developments they were building, waterfront townhomes and condos. And so she called me in her office one day. I thought I was in trouble. Terry, thank you so much for hiring me. And now she's a realtor at my real estate company. Terry Brasini, amazing woman. So she's like, hey, do you want a job? I know you like real estate. So I helped a developer for like a year and a half, 2 years. And I was also selling these townhomes and condos on the weekends in open houses. And so anyway, I did that. And then after a couple of years of that, I was like, oh my God, I'm 20 years old. I haven't joined the Army yet. So I joined the Army. 6.5 years later, I get out, reactivate my license. The rest is history. I got back into it full bore. And just like you, Jonathan, I started with like one little crappy house, and I pulled up to it. And my dad's like, Michael, take me home. This is a piece of crap, take me home right now. And I'm like, no, Dad, seriously, this is a great investment. And so just like you, bought one, did well, bought two, did well, flip, duplexes, triplexes, then apartments. And then I met my mentor, Dilip Wadhwani. God bless his soul. I helped him buy a plaza, and he realized I had no idea what I was doing. I was faking it till I make it. Cause I'm a realtor or whatever, a broker. And at my real estate company, I had an agent that was his agent, and he called me and said, I don't know what I'm doing. So I took over the deal. Thank God I did. Dilip taught me how to study commercial leases. He taught me about all of it. And then it blew my mind, so that I sold all my residential and got into commercial. So, that's basically, I grew up in real estate. That's how I got involved in it. It's just everything. When I graduated high school, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. That's why I went right into real estate school. So, unfortunately, the sad part of the story is that when I got out of the Army, after 6.5 years, my dad had sold all his real estate investments, moved up to Tennessee, and kind of like blew all his money on like stuff in the woods. And they had a lake house. And so by the time I got out of the Army, they had to move back down to Tampa area, and he was back working in construction and renting a house, which is sad. But we got the family back up, so we're good.
Will you talk more about the impact that your parents had on you growing up and seeing your parents buy these houses, fix them up, go buy another one, fix them up, rent them out, and you kind of living this real estate investor life vicariously through your parents? Will you talk more about how that impacted you?
Oh my God. I mean, it gives me goosebumps to even hear you ask the question. I mean, it was such an empowering thing to watch your parents buy land and homes and have people live in them, and they're giving them money. It really makes Monopoly, when you're playing Monopoly, it gives a whole new perspective on Monopoly and just life in general and investing. And it just impacted me in a way that was really empowering and a huge confidence booster to see my dad, my mom owning all this stuff. And I remember being a kid and writing down every address that we owned. And I was just a kid. I was like 8 years old. And for some reason, I'm sit there and I was obsessively like writing down the addresses and how much I think they're worth. And like, wow, like that was like the most amazing feeling to me. And watching the transformations too was so cool. It's like a journey that you take when you buy this asset and make it nicer. And yeah, it was just invigorating and amazing. And invigorates me till this day.
And so let's fast forward to the end, to the present day anyway. What does your portfolio look like today?
So including my two personal homes, I have about 77,000 square feet of real estate. 2/3 of that is two plazas that I bought just in the last year. Basically the 6 assets that I own, or I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are the commercial real estate is this office I'm sitting in right now, which, as you can see, glass fronts, nice tile, is my real estate office. And I lease to Sun Country Cleaners. They don't do on-site cleaning. 4,500 square feet. My other one is Peach Plaza, I call it. It's 18,500 square feet. It's a shopping plaza. I've got like Hungry Howie's in there. I've got a sports bar. I've got a dog bar. I've got a salon, whatever. My next one is MJ Village, which is the new one I bought, which is the one keeping me up at night.
We're going to get into that
which
one.
We'll get into it. And so that's 33,400 square feet. That's one I'm acquired. I'm stabilizing. The fourth one is a 4,500 square foot office for the state of Florida Department of Corrections and probation parole office, 10-year lease, government lease, but it's full service, which, then I have another plaza. I know, Jonathan, you own all your stuff 100%.
Correct.
I have one property that I own 50% of. Every other one, I'm the same way. But this one is a 9,000 square foot plaza with 3 apartments at the top. That's my only residential other than my personal. But it's like Jay McLaughlin, which is a national clothier, is my anchor. And then HerScan, which is like mammograms, and then a couple boutiques. So that's my portfolio right now. It's 77,000 square feet, like I said, including my personal homes. And yeah, that's it. You know, anyway, so that in a nutshell, yeah, that's it.
Okay. And so you've got 5 properties, 5 commercial properties. One of them you own 50-50, and the other 4, you are the 100% owner. You haven't, right? These are not syndications. You used your own capital.
No.
You sign on the loan.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the most common question that I get when people reach out to me through the podcast, through LinkedIn, they want to know, how do I do this? How do I invest in commercial real estate? And so of those 5 properties, so basically what I'd like to get out of you is, I think someone like you is really unique. There are not many Mike Henzels out there. Most people are either doing residential, or they're trying to raise money, and they're trying to put $0 of their own money in a deal, and they're just trying to raise money from friends and family and random people on the internet. Very few people are doing what you and I do, which is own our real estate outright ourselves. And so I would like our conversation to be based around, how do other people do this? Because I think there are some people that do want to syndicate and raise money and buy the biggest deal possible. I believe that there are even more people that would rather own their own stuff themselves. And so maybe we can give people an insight into how do they do this themselves. So of those 5 properties that you own, which one did you buy first?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have since 2014 November, I've done about 70 deals. So my portfolio was in flux a lot. Out of the current portfolio I have, the one that I bought first was this office here, which I bought in 2019 around my birthday, October, November, just in time for COVID.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at is, let's start with the capital aspect. I know the most recent project that's keeping you up at night, I believe was somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million. And
Yep.
you used your own capital for that. I don't want to start there. I want to know how we got there, because I want listeners to know that was not your first deal. You did not start with a $5 million property. And so from a capital perspective, can you give us a little bit of how you built the snowball to be able to eventually buy a $5 million property? So can you kind of take us back through the years and how you built this nest egg to be able to buy bigger properties yourself?
Yes, 100%. So I'm going to talk about 3 things. I'm going to talk about a sponge. Okay. I'm going to talk about value add, and I'm going to talk about the income capitalization approach. Okay. Why a sponge? Well, if sponge is debt and water is money, and you utilize either seller financing, or banks, you borrow their sponge. You go over here, and then you squeeze the sponge real hard, and then you go into a bucket of water, and you let go and soak up all the money, the water, and then you squeeze it in your own bucket, and the sponge is dry, and then you give it back to the bank. You must get comfortable with using debt, okay? If you're not comfortable with using debt, you're never going to snowball into a larger portfolio solo. So many people are debt averse, but they don't understand. So now I'm going to talk about value add, an income capitalization approach. It's very simple, guys. So if I took my calculator and I told you that you're able to go buy and I'm going to get into how to start and stuff, but these are some key principles you need to understand. If you add $10,000 of income, of net income to a property, take that income, divide it by what I call a trading cap rate. What does that mean? Capitalization rate. If it's really low risk, probably 5-6%. If it's a higher risk, 8-9% that you would divide that income by. Typically, we're talking about 6 to 7%. So let's just say 7%. So divide that by a 7% return. You added $142,000 of value to that property. Now think about this. How to get started. If you bought a duplex for $250,000 and you put 20% or 25% down, or you're a veteran, you put nothing down, whatever, and the rents are $1,000 aside, but you know that landlord that sold it to you became friends with his tenants. And for some reason, it's supposed to be $1,500 aside, but they're my friends and I don't need the money. Why do they get the privilege of saving $500 a month each when everybody else has to pay this much? Get that out of your head. It's not an unethical thing to do. It's cereal out of your bowl or mine. So you buy that, you either kick them out or just up the rents if they don't agree. They're out. Put somebody in. You just added $12,000 a year. How much you buy for? $250,000. You just added. We just did $10,000 at 7%. That was almost $50,000. So you just added $12,000. So you put 25% down. You put $60,000-$70,000 down. You just created value of $150,000. That is how your snowball blows up. Okay. Then you go. You can do the burst strategy. You could just sell it, take the cash, 1031 it. But you have to not be risk averse. You cannot be debt averse. You have to understand the sponge concept. You're taking the bank's sponge. They make money that way. They borrow their sponge out. That's debt. Use that debt sponge to squeeze up profits. How? Value add deals. And, cash flow is cool. You should have two goals, a cash flow goal and a net worth goal. And, you need cash flow to live. You want to get as rich as possible because financial dependence makes you a kid again. Life becomes way more fun when you don't have to worry about money. But anyway, that's more or less, you can start as small as a $50,000 deal. Because if you make a $50,000 deal worth $80,000 and you have $10,000 in, guess what? Now you have $40,000. Now go buy a $200,000 deal. Hey, now you have $200,000. Now go, and before you know it, your head's going to spin. But you just have to understand those concepts.
I think it's also there. I have a couple of reflections based on what you just said. One, the importance of value add. It is tempting to see commercial real estate and to want to go buy, an AutoZone with a 10-year lease on it or something with 1 or 2% annual increases. But that's something that you buy later on down the road once you're wealthy. That's not the property that you get wealthy on. You get wealthy on these really hairy properties with meat on the bone, with low rents, the kind of property that you drive up in front of with your dad and your dad freaks out and doesn't even want to go in. And those are the kinds of properties that you truly build wealth on. Then once you have a net worth of $10 or $20 million down the line, go buy that AutoZone or the Chick-fil-A or whatever, and you can sit on the cash flow. But it's with the serious value add properties that you really start your snowball. That was true for me. I also want to just kind of acknowledge how you opened up the conversation talking about the importance of getting comfortable with debt and leverage. And also the fact that you are doing a lot of these deals yourself. And so I think it's a lot of people point out the importance of partnerships. And I also generally do not partner on properties, but I do get leverage on properties. And so the cool thing about getting leverage from banks is you do not have to share the profits with banks. Whereas if you have a partner, you have to share the profits with a partner. You have to pay the bank for sure. You have to pay them interest and sometimes principal depending on your loan situation. But you can make $100,000, you can make $1 million. You don't have to share any of that with a bank. Whereas if you're partnering with other investors, you do have to share that. And so, on the one hand, partnering can be a good way to do bigger deals and grow faster, but you're going to have to get comfortable sharing if you partner. Whereas if you focus on doing smaller deals with maybe higher returns and using banks, you can keep all that profit for yourself. You don't have to share the profit with banks. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh my God. Yes. Preach, brother. I think that that's why, like when, Osh was like, go raise capital. Why haven't you raised capital yet? And I'm like, okay, I can go do a ginormous deal and make, as much money as doing a smaller deal myself. I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't have to share the profits. I'm not their slave. I don't have to like get a call on Saturday. Mike, I need the money, and it's like, I'd much rather have somebody I'm paying 6, 7, 8% to, because debt is a line item. Let me tell you, I just borrowed 700 grand from my very close friend, and just an amazing guy to fund a build out, because I could have easily, had the bank do it or whatever, or I could have brought a partner on. But I look at it and I made him an offer. I said, I can go to the bank or I can go to, you have the extra cash. This is another thing, guys, guys and girls that are listening. You must switch partner with mentor. And any good, let me start over. So what I want to say is that, having a mentor here, whether it's Jonathan or myself or somebody in your close circle, is a game changer. It's scary doing this stuff. And it is easy to be susceptible to get into partnerships that are not really equitable. It's awesome to find a mentor that's going to steer you the right direction, and then also connect you with people that can be debt partners. Those are the partners you want, if you would agree, Jonathan.
I 100% agree. We did not talk before we hit record, but you and I are aligned in a lot of different ways. I do raise a small amount of money from friends and family, and I do it as debt, not as a syndication, and for various reasons that I won't go into now. I believe that, especially right now, debt is fair for all parties involved. I think I think debt is fair for the investor, the person doing the borrowing, and I think debt is also very fair for the lender as well. It's more of a sure thing. You're higher on the capital stack, and it's not quite as volatile as being an equity partner. So yeah, we're definitely aligned there. I love your line about debt as a line item. So you can count on it. It's a known expense, and so I think that's a really good way of thinking about it. And to be clear, there is nothing wrong with syndicating. There is nothing wrong with that model. The way Mike and I are talking about doing deals is just different. It means you're probably going to start with smaller deals, but it also means that you are going to retain a lot of control. You're not going to have to answer to lots of investors, getting, like Mike alluded to, getting phone calls from investors on a Saturday saying, hey, I have to send my kid to college. I need my money back. Hey, why were the returns not hitting projections this quarter? You could be on vacation in Hawaii. I talked with one person who raises money who talked about taking investor calls while they were on vacation in Hawaii. And I'm like, that is the last thing that I want to be doing. So that is why right now, I choose to not syndicate. And when I do use investor funds, I just do it as debt. So, Mike, let's talk about your most recent acquisition, this deal that's keeping you up at night. Will you tell us a little bit? Will you describe the deal? What is it? How big is it? What'd you buy it for?
Yeah. So essentially, last year, I clipped the tree branches of my portfolio, and I ended up with about 2.2 million bucks. And I started, shopping. And my mentor, Dilip Wadwani, blessed angel, This man, he has a plaza across the street of one of his plazas. He, by the way, has 150,000 square feet of commercial real estate. And the owner of the plaza across the street said, "Hey, do you want to buy this?" And Dilip referred him to me because Dilip's like, I'm good. And so I bought that one last year, 18,500 square feet with those funds. Seller financing, 600 grand down. I spent about 100 grand. I turned the NOI from like 220 to like over 400 within like 9 months. And that was a fabulous deal. And I had a bunch of money left over. So I'm sitting here looking at my Morgan Stanley account and I got like a bunch of stocks. I had like 800 grand of Uber at one point, you know? And like one morning, like I'll wake up and like by 11 o'clock, I've made 50 grand. And then another day I'd lose 50 grand. And I was like, I hate the stock market. It doesn't make any sense. And I was like, man, I got to put this money into another real estate deal. And I'm looking on the market and I saw this property on 300 East Bay Drive, Largo, Florida. And I remember seeing it a couple of years ago on the market, and I remember looking at it and just staring at it in awe. I'm like, man, this thing is beautiful. Wow, I wish one day I could buy that. And I'm like, this is that property. They wanted like 8 million at the time. Now it was like priced at like almost 7. And I was like, you know what? Shot in the dark. I'm going to see if they'll take seller financing, and I'll see if they'll take 5 million. And actually 4.5, I think I started with. And yes, on the seller financing, and they came back with like 6. I ended up signing the deal at 5.5. I retraded the deal during due diligence. I came back to them with a litany of items, and I said, hey, I could do this at 5 million. We can go to closing. We can close anytime. And so they acquiesced. I got another $500,000 off. Seller financing, 6 months, no payments, 6% interest only, 2.5-year balloon. So my payments actually start in this month, like on the 22nd. It's like 21G a month. And I put 750 grand down on the deal. I've spent about $250,000 on it and maybe 300. So I'm $1,050,000 into the deal. And it's 2 buildings that are about 17,000 square feet each, 2 floors. And they're connected by this cool breezeway. I have like 200 parking spots. I back up to Largo High School. I face Largo Central Park. I got a Hampton Inn on one side, a credit union on the other. It's like 2.5 acres. It's perfect. But it has no cash flow. It's like, what idiot goes out there and doesn't have it? Literally, there was a church in there that's paying like not enough to even pay the power and water. And then I had like a crappy little call center that I kicked them out like as fast as I could. Not the church. I said to the church, I said, guys, I respect what you're doing, but in the next few months, I'm going to need you to leave. And so they're actually finally leaving on the 15th. So this deal was very close to my heart. I graduated from Largo High. I take my kids to Largo Central Park during Christmas. It's like lit up like a Christmas tree. I have no affinity for Hampton Inn or a credit union, but I do know I grew up here and it was infested with homeless people. Nothing against homeless people, but it was infested with that. Like, let me give you an example. 55,000 cars a day, right? In front of it, sidewalks where kids are leaving school and have to go home. The sidewalk, half of it was covered with dirt and leaves from this building. Kids were seeing homeless people when they're walking home from school. And it was so sad. I was like, I don't give a crap about the risk. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to cut real close to the bone. It's like Star Wars when he's flying through the asteroid belt. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I know it's going to take years off of my life. It's going to give me gray hair, but I'm going to do it for the community. And I'll make some money doing it too. So first thing I do, it's the same soup and sandwich. I have nothing to hide from anybody. It's the same soup and sandwich, guys. You buy a good location commercial piece of real estate that's distressed, that needs your help, needs love. I love buying stuff with turnkey cash flow. That's what I did my last plaza with. This one, not so much. So higher risk, higher reward. So first I did the roof. That was like 140 grand. I painted, took care of the wood trim, redid the parking lot, did all the landscaping, got both of the wells back going. So landscaping, sod, make it beautiful. I did not put it to market until I was done. I got beautiful renderings done, that would more encapsulate, it. And so then once that was like after 2 months, I got it to that level. Then I put it on. I was like, I have 6 months. It's like Apollo 13. I was like, oh my god, like I got to make this work. And after 2 months, I put it on the market. And so far, I have Regis, which is IWG International Work Group. They have 4,000 locations. They're the biggest co-work company in the world, taking a whole building. I joke, I call it like they're taking a tower, but it's 2 stories. It's got its own elevator. Each building does. And I'm doing the build out, about 750 grand of work. Beautiful. I mean, they just sent me the plans. We should probably kick off demo like in a couple weeks. I'm a GC. I love doing I do my own projects. I've been a GC for over 10 years. I've done new builds. I've done complete commercial build outs. It's like one of my joys in my life is doing construction. So they are projecting, I have the projections right here, actually. They are projecting about 750 to 800,000 by year 2, which is like 65, 70 grand a month from just that one building. Co-work is popular, and they handle everything. It's like partnering with Hilton. You operate my hotel, just take care of everything. They take their VIG, just like short-term rentals. Like they charge their percentage for property management. They staff it, whatever's left. It's a revenue share model. It's not even like a lease. It's crazy. So I have all the risk, but I'm risk mitigated because I know the area. I'm intimate with the area, and I can cut close to the bone. So in any event, the whole entire complex, the whole plaza, costs about 35 grand, including debt service a month to run. And so just this one tenant or just this one placement will cash flow 15 to 20 grand a month. The other tower or building, I have a massage in there. I have a contractor in the back. I've got a salon that might take 6,500 square feet remaining of the bottom floor, or a bank at the end cap that's sending me an LOI, and a hot works in the middle. Then upstairs, I think I might put like a pediatric clinic in there. So at the end of the day, this building by March, April, May will be cash flowing. I want to say after everything, I mean, I could be as little as 20 grand. I could be as high as 60 from this one building. I'm estimating I'd be happy with 35 grand. The rest of my portfolio does about 28. So then at 39 years old, I would be cash flowing about 60 grand a month, or more, 50 to 70. So my goal was by 40 to have a $20 million more net worth and 50 grand or more of cash flow. I turned 40 in a year and 1 day because I turned 39 tomorrow. This deal's scary because here's the list. Ready? Very risky. What were you thinking? Who do you think you are? I can go through the whole list. I won't. Anyway, that's my latest deal. And now I'm already hungry for another deal. Cool. I'm looking at the 50.
Let me ask you some questions about it.
Yeah.
So I want to remind listeners, this deal was not Mike's first deal. He previously mentioned he's done close to 70 real estate deals. And so I know people get excited about the cash flow. We get excited about taking down a $5 million deal, leasing up vacant space. This was not Mike's first deal, and it is probably not advisable to do this kind of deal as your first deal. So I'll start with that.
Never, ever.
I would encourage people to, if you're not driving right now, if you have a moment, check out this property, because I did. You can also check out Mike's YouTube channel, which we'll talk about a little later on. But he talks about this deal on his YouTube channel, 300 East Bay Drive, Largo, Florida. So you can kind of get an idea of the location, the street that it's on, what's behind it. You'll see the high school, you'll see the park. You'll see what's around it, and you'll see, wow, this property's in an incredible location. And I think the street view images are a couple years old. And so the landscaping looks a little overgrown. And so I was feverishly jotting down notes as you were talking about it. So you eventually got them down to a $5 million purchase price. They started, I think you said, close to $7 million, maybe $8 million. You eventually closed at $5 million, and you only put $750K down. This was going to be one of my questions going into this interview, but you answered it already. How do you put only 15% down on a mostly vacant property? For people unfamiliar with this asset class, that is basically unheard of. Most banks won't even touch vacant buildings unless you've got really high liquidity or incredible experience or really high net worth, something like that. And so getting financing on a mostly vacant property, very difficult to do. That's why seller financing made sense. And do you think the seller knew that this was just a really tough sell, and that's why they were willing to go down to 5 million and offer seller financing?
He's a developer. He lives in Albania, and his plan was to tear this down. So get this, Jonathan. I've got a 10-year horizon, investment horizon, right? So this thing is approved for over 120 residential units to build on. So the guy basically, he abandoned ship on his development ideas. He, saw a shiny thing in Albania to develop, and so he lives there. He doesn't care. He doesn't care that kids or ladies with strollers are going down the sidewalk and halfway into a highly trafficked street. He doesn't care that people are shooting up behind this thing where there's a high school. He doesn't care that it looks like crap. He doesn't care, and it's very irresponsible of people. No offense, but like, hey, you're not buying a house down the street where only 5 neighbors see you. 55,000 people see you, you're building. You have a responsibility to the community as a commercial real estate investor, with this asset class. If you're an industrial warehouse down in Cleveland, by the river next to the natural gas plant, okay. Anyway, so I think that his disposition was kind of like, well, this guy, maybe he'll default and I'll take it back and take his money. And who is this guy? I don't give a crap. I don't have any risk. So I think that was kind of like in his head, maybe. I don't know. So,
And I want to note that it's an incredible location. 55,000 cars per day is a really high traffic count. And so usually to get me excited about like an office retail deal, I'm looking at 20,000 cars. So, 2.5 times what I consider to be pretty good traffic counts is an incredible location. And then will you talk about kind of the layout of the building? Because from Google Maps, it's not real clear what it is. It kind of looks officey from the outside, and you have one tower that sounds like it's going to be mostly office. It sounds like the other part of the building is kind of a mix of office and retail. Will you describe the other tower, the part that's going to be kind of some office, some retail?
gladly. So essentially, let me see here. Here we are. So right here, if you look at this, this is the one building, bottom floor, top floor. So I don't know if it's blurry or not, but maybe if I go like this, you can see how like there's a big open area in the center on the second floor, and then offices on the exterior. Down here, big open space. You come in to the front, you go in here, you got bathrooms here, and stuff. But you have this big open area right here, and then you have some pocket offices here, and this is like a kitchen back here, or right here. My bad. Right here is like a kitchen, and then the other building on the other side, you can see, there's this beautiful gazebo out here, an open area. This is the end cap by the credit union. The Hampton Inn is over here, this building. You see the breezeway connects them. And so I have this for a spa. This, by the way, this is both of these, bottom floor and top floor. That's all Regis. That's all going to be this modern, awesome co-work space where you can go rent one office, 3 offices, 3 months, 6 months, a year at a time, all beautiful, turnkey furnished. So it's it's a great business model, and it's growing rapidly. So anyway, over here, that's leased. The back part's leased. This middle spot, I think a Hotworks wants, and this is a bank. Or I can lease the whole thing to a salon. And the upstairs, you see how it's like offices. It's kind of skinny right here. This whole top floor, I have no idea what to do with. I got a pediatric clinic I might put up there. I have 2 elevators. I have an elevator in each building, and it's $72,000 to modernize an elevator, by the way. And I have to modernize both.
I want to ask you, I was looking on your YouTube channel as you're kind of talking through some of the details, the day-to-day details and stresses that you're going through. And I would characterize your temperament on your YouTube channel when talking about this deal as sort of excited trepidation. On the one hand, it seems like you can literally make millions of dollars on this deal. But on the other hand, you have to execute it. So you talked before about carrying costs being $35,000 a month, and you kicked all the tenants out, or you politely asked them to leave, and you got it down to zero income because you know what has to get done in order to get the rents that you need to get in order to make those millions of dollars. So will you talk to us a little bit about your mindset about risk and reward and risk adjusted returns? How do you view risk going into this vacant building where you have $35,000 of costs and you're about to put almost $1 million of capital expenses into it?
So, it's very scary. And I have kids, I have a wife, I have a substantial portfolio. But if I have a $26 million portfolio when this is stabilized, and equity of, 17, $18 million, but I have no cash and then no bank wants to give me any money because all I'm showing is losses, but it's scary. It's really scary. It's stuff that you wake up at 3 a.m. and you feel like there's an elephant sitting on your chest and you doubt yourself all the time. And somehow you power through it. You just kind of like, literally, I have thousands of pages of journaling in the morning. I wake up, I walk my dogs, I play with my kids, I walk to the gym, I work out vigorously, I steam, then I walk to work about 40 minutes, I make phone calls, I sit here, I bust my butt. The harder I work and more in control I feel, the less nervous I get. And so it's really about, it's not for the faint of heart. And I have all the confidence in the world in myself to do this. And I that's it. That's how I get through it. I work out. I have a great wife. I have great kids. I have a great mentor, Dilip. Thank you so much for your assistance. I talk to Dilip probably more than he wants me to. I call him every day. It's like, Dilip, this is what I did. There's nobody in the ceiling whispering to me at night, telling me what to do. And, and then the voices in your head are going to keep telling you, like, you really screwed up. Don't do this, or don't do this. Don't do this. However, let me tell you about a deal I did that I sold last year.
Hold on. Before we go to that one, let me ask you one more question about this one. So,
yeah,
not many people like to talk about risks. Will you kind of go through, so that voice in your head that you talked about earlier, that's saying, what did you do? Why did you buy this? How is this ever going to work? What is that voice talking about? What risks are associated with this property? What could go wrong?
Embarrassment. Honey, I can't pay the credit card bill.
Because
I bought this deal. I couldn't lease it up in time. I'm burning through 35 grand a month. I have no cash flow, or the cash flow that I have for my rentals, the 28, 30 grand just underwrites this. And I only have 5-6 grand a month left, but it costs us 25 grand a month to live. I've extended all my lines of credit. My phone is ringing right now from a creditor and I can't pay our bills. And I have to sell something, but it's going to take us 4 or 5 months because there's an administration change. I have no access to capital. No bank wants to touch me. I'm a hot potato and I screwed it up.
Okay. So listeners, when you're thinking about buying that vacant property, I mean, those are real concerns. And so there's definitely potential for high reward with some of these hairy vacant properties, but those are very real concerns. You're in Largo, Florida, very fast growing, bustling area. So this deal is probably going to work out just fine. And
probably,
if I know you well enough at this point to say that you're not going to let this deal fail, but deals can and do go bad. And so there's incredible opportunity out there, but there's also incredible risk. And so I just wanted to highlight that that there's risk, and you are not taking on all this risk as your first deal. You're taking this on as your 70th deal. So sorry
Yeah.
for interrupting you. You were in the middle of a story. You
Yeah.
wanted to tell us about another deal.
No, I mean, it's just I'll just say it like this. Okay. I bought in 2016, I bought a pair of duplexes. I put 45 grand down, seller financing, right? I sold them a few years later. I left closing with 200 grand. I put I put that into a small apartment. I sold it a year later. I left with 300. Then I bought my first commercial, my first commercial property. I put $250,000 into it, and after I placed a tenant, it had 70% vacancy. It got appraised for 2.6 million. I refinanced it, used that money to buy more real estate. I bought more real estate, and I bought more real estate. The deal that I sold, I bought it for $895, and I carried it for it was 11,700 square feet, 616 E Street, Clearwater, Florida. And I put a huge hospital system in there for for primary care, and they're big tenant, multi-billion-dollar company. As soon as I put them in, and they had this deal, the lease signed, I got it reappraised, 2.6 million. I owe 650 on it. I had $250,000 in this thing. I turned $250,000 into $1.85 million. Okay. And I had another property I bought, my first commercial property prior to that. I bought for 825. I sold it last year for 2.1. So, I mean, it's incredible how much money you can make by knowing what you're doing, but start small, and I do this little thing where you go like that, so, I had a property, that I bought, like I said, last year for 3.2 million. I could probably sell it for 6.5 to 7 million. And I've only owned it for a year. Like, I really hockey sticked in the last 18 months. As soon as I decided to stop being so sclerotic and just disposition these assets to loosen up capital, but you don't have a deal. What are you going to do? Analysis paralysis will kill you. Get liquid. Once you're stabilized, there's like a little journey, right? You buy, stabilize, refinance, buy more stuff, and then you look back at this one as you're stabilizing this new stuff, sell it. You still have a ton of equity. Go buy another one. Because if you can make 100 into 400 and 400 into 1600 and so on and so forth, that's how you build. So that's it, man. I mean,
Are you, Mike?
Good.
Are you good with paying taxes when you sell properties?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm fine with that. I love cost seg. It's not really as great as people think it is. I love 1031ing. So you mitigate down as much as you can. On $3.2 million a gain, I whittled it down because I have so much depreciation down to like only owing 90 grand, where I could have owed 600. So you gotta be smart and wise to the tax strategy and have a good accountant, because a lot of accountants are too scared to deal with stuff. You just have to, you got to this is not easy. You have to sit there and read and work and read and bust your butt. And even to start, not a lot of people have more than 20 grand in the bank. You have to work maybe 2 jobs. You got to avoid going out to eat, Uber Eats, vacations for a little while. You got to shore up capital in the beginning and then stick it into an asset to make it this. And then you got your foot in the game. And then you got to build and build and build. And even after 5 years, you're like, man, I only have, 9 grand of cash flow and I made $1.5 million of equity. And you're like, and then that's the mindset you want. Well, that's too small. I'm going to keep going. The real magic happens when you tough through it all and take big risks. And then, like I said, then it's a hockey stick, but it's a magical thing, real estate. It's a magical thing if you know what you're doing in it, and you're willing to work hard.
As you talk, I generate a million different questions in my head, and one is about funding tenant improvements and capital expenses. You talked about one property getting a major hospital group in there, and I think, wow, that sounds awesome, but oh my gosh, what did that build out cost? So can you talk about you talked about with your MJ Village property having to borrow 700 grand from a friend. I imagine doing a build out for a hospital group is going to be pretty pricey. Will you talk about some of your favorite ways or suggestions for funding capital improvements and tenant improvements?
100%. Typically I like to have them do their own improvements. I have nothing to do with it, and I'll give them free rent. But sometimes you can't avoid it. And if you can't avoid it, then, if they're a credit tenant, then your bank will finance it. Typically a tenant improvement is like, hey, I've got Apple Computer coming in here, or Baycare Medical Group, or I've got, this multi-billion dollar company coming in, or this whatever. Hey, look, they signed a personal guarantee and corporate guarantee or whatever lease, and that's like worth its weight in gold. But I have to do this improvement. I have to spend $1 million, but they signed a 10-year lease. And what you do with those tenants is let's just say they were going to be paying you $25 a foot triple net with $5 a CAM. Well, whatever that costs on a monthly basis, pro rata per square foot, just add it to the top. So instead of them paying that bulk, you borrowed it from the bank, did the build out, and it's a pass through to the bank. Whatever that costs a month, you didn't pay for anything. They paid for it, and it just passes through. So you're still getting everything you have. So that's a good strategy, that I like to do. And then sometimes you just have to, just help out, but like with the Regis, like I'm paying for that, but it's borrowed money. And then when I get them in there and it's cash flowing, just like with the rest of this building, MJ Village, I bought it for $5. It'll probably appraise for the net that I'm going to have on it by the summer. It'll probably appraise for anywhere from 10.5 to 11 million. I'll do a non-recourse loan through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac that, is great, 30-year terms, things like that. And I'll probably get, $6 million or something, $6.5 million, and I'll pay back my friend, I'll pay back the seller financing, and I'll put $1 million in my pocket. And instead of cash flowing 40 grand a month, I'll cash flow 22. Who cares? 25. I don't know. And the rate will be better at that time anyway. So it's a line item, right? So if I'm borrowing 700 grand to do this build out for Regis, and it's costing me, I don't know, 100 grand, but I'm making $5 million. What's 100 grand on $1 million? 10%. What about 5 million, 6 million of upside? What, I got a 3% cost of capital? I don't care, So my actual cash out is the 750 plus maybe 300, so $1.05 million. Oh, and by the way, I got $100,000 commission at the closing.
When you borrow 700 grand from a friend or family member, what kind of terms is that? And do you say, hey, this thing isn't cash flowing right now, and so I can't make interest payments. I'm gonna make payments in 12 months from now, or you'll get it all when I pay you back. How do you set that up?
Pay at the end. One time I borrowed $1 million from a guy at 7% interest only. That was due monthly, and it was tied against cash on real estate. That was back in 2018. It was a 2-year term, and it matured 3 months after COVID started. So that was exciting. Another time I did just pass through. It was a friend that had a line of credit, and so they did me a favor, and I was just paying the interest on the line of credit pass through and paid them back. And then this recent time, it's a lump sum at the end, and then the pass through for whatever it caught, like the cost of the capital, because it's off of a line of credit. So my cost of capital on things, I've groomed my brain. Like, I forget who said, I think Warren Buffett said, if you can't manage your emotions, then you will never be able to manage money. And so, take that with a grain of salt. It's just tough. You have to sit there and literally manifest and groom your brain to be used to these bigger and bigger numbers and be comfortable with it. Because, if I sat here today, Jonathan, and told you I have $11 million of debt, you know, that a lot of people would be listening to that and being like, what the hell? But then you tell them, oh, but I have $28 million of assets. Then it's like, oh, well, okay. And the cash flow is what? So you're not going to get away with getting bigger and scaling up without getting bigger chunks of debt. You can stop, but then you're stopping, right? How are you supposed to grow?
And lots of people have very different thoughts about how to use debt and leverage, and there's no wrong way of doing it. It sounds like you are, some people would say highly leveraged, but you're, somewhere around the 33% leverage mark, which isn't crazy. And, it's possible as your portfolio grows and as you get older and you potentially seek more security, you might want to lower the amount of debt. And you might say, hey, I'm good with lower debt for maybe a little more safety and security. But you're not going to grow as fast. But you might get to a point where you're like, I don't need to grow anymore. I've got enough money. And so people's thoughts and feelings on debt can certainly evolve over time. Mike, I want to be respectful of your time, but we've had such an awesome conversation. It's great to talk with someone that I feel is so like-minded. You're like 5 to 10 steps ahead of me doing bigger deals that I'm doing, but we share a lot of the same beliefs about real estate, which is really cool. If you imagine Mike Hendzel is starting in commercial real estate today, imagine you're getting out of the Army today and you're like, okay, I'm getting into real estate. What advice would you give yourself today?
I would just say that stick as locally as possible to where gentrification is happening. Start there. I have nothing against like investing in different states and all that later on. And they're like, big tenants and, whatever, you're more experienced. But for the first few years, 5 years, the street that you used to walk down to go get your first haircut, or when you're 12, 15, your high school's right there, your whatever's right here. Like, you can make the market that way, and you can have more confidence that way. So stick to your area and location, location, location. And when you're underwriting, just, obsess over the fact that income capitalization approach will set you free. It's easy. 10,000 square feet, that you can achieve $20 a foot triple net. That's 200 grand a year. And, it could sell at like a hot cake at 7% return. So, that is, 1 second here. So 200 grand divided by 7%, that 2.8 million, 2.85 is the exit. Start, that's the stabilized value, and you can go take that down for $1 million. It's going to cost you 200 grand of whatever. Just make that exit and what you're all in on as big as gap as possible. That's it. Focus on that, and just that's it. That's what I would tell somebody starting out. Don't be afraid.
Will you talk more about the importance of investing locally?
Oh my gosh, yeah, because basically, you're more tied into the community, and like, I think that you should understand as a new investor that you should be really like cognizant, like with the local BBA or whatever, the business groups of like the companies, because they're the tenants, right? So the more the businesses around you that you solicit yourself, and you get into the ears of those tenants and the owners, like, oh, they need to like, expand, or they don't like this location because there's mold and the landlord won't do anything. So like finding the tenants helps buy. Because if you have 4 or 5 tenants that that are going to be moving or need space, that helps you say, oh, I can buy this place and I can fill it up right away. So being local and understanding and reading the local news, it's so much easier understanding one specific like set of zip codes or a county than like being spread thin and just looking for the next shiny thing everywhere. Just like you could do so much, and so many good things for the community by just being in your city, just your city, just a few cities, just like 3 or 4 cities. It's just important. Like let me just give an example. The building I bought last year with 220 grand of NOI, net operating income. Across the street, the rents were like $18 gross. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy this thing. I'm going to make it beautiful. And I'm going to go in there at $22 a foot, triple net, with like $6 CAM. I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go 25 a foot. And guess what? I got it. I made the market. And I will also say this: it's a little more easy. It's a little more easy to digestible to lease out 800, 1,000 square feet at a time versus like big spaces like 10,000, 7,000, 15,000 square feet in plazas and such, and things like that.
Mike, will you talk about if there's anything that veterans should know about investing? You're a veteran and you've done incredibly well in real estate. Is there anything that you wish more veterans would know about real estate?
Go to Veteran Transitions on Facebook. I've got a group. It's got a couple thousand followers. I call it the Veteran Cash Flow Starter Kit, right? So if you didn't use your GI Bill yet, go to class, go to school. They pay you. In Tampa, it's $2,700 a month, tax-free. Use your VA loan to go buy a duplex up to a fourplex for no money down. Live in one unit. You're not paying like cash flow it or just wash out that $1,500 or $2,000 a month. And now you got a starting point. Okay. And if you already have your primary residence and you have your VA loan there, that's fine. Consider they call it like in-home flipping or something. It's kind of like what my parents did, like in-home flips. Like you live there, use your VA loan. You make it nice. After 2 years, sell it or refinance it with a regular loan and use your VA loan to buy another house in a nice neighborhood that is dilapidated that you can fix up. And use your VA loan as a wealth building tool because it's no money out. Hey, here's the keys to 3,000 square foot house. What do I owe you? Nothing. Great, And if you're not wanting to buy a triplex or your wife or your husband's like, I don't want to live in a triplex, then you can room hack. If you got a bunch of kids or whatever, and they, you need the rooms, then I don't know what to tell you. It's not for everybody. But as a veteran, the power of your GI Bill combined with your veteran loan, VA loan, and all the different things that are available to you, grants and things like that, and just education, it's unreal. It's unbelievable. As a veteran, you have such a huge advantage.
Finally, Mike, as we wrap up, if listeners want to connect with you, learn more about the deals that you're doing, where would you like to send people?
So I own a company called Mav Realty, also Bel Air Title, and Mav Builds. So my partner for those companies is Kevin Glonick. I met him in basic training in 2006. So check us out at MAV Realty, Mav for Maverick.com. Check me out on my LinkedIn. You have my name. Mike, my email is mike@themavbrands.com. That's the parent company that owns the subsidiaries. Check out my YouTube channel, Power of Real Estate. Just Google Power of Real Estate and put Hendzel. We also have the Power of Real Estate. You can do mavlearning.com and you can click or go Power Real Estate or whatever. You can see we have an online book. We have a course that's free. So I have like a 30-page book I wrote about all the things I talked about from A to Z, how to get started, the 5 components of the Power of Real Estate, and emphasize all of that, cap rates, and all 9 yards.
Mike, I love your passion and enthusiasm for real estate. You are an inspiration to me.
Likewise.
I know this episode is going to be inspiring to others. And so I just really admire what you're doing and really appreciate your time today.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for the invite. It's been awesome.
Listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, reach out to either one of us. We love talking about real estate and we would love to connect with you. Make sure you follow and subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening or watching. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. Until next time.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike.